My name is Michael, and I thought my marriage to Linda was perfect, until money became a problem. We were once happy, laughing and dreaming together, but now, every night ended in arguments. It all started small. A missing naira here, an unexpected expense there. But soon, the fights grew louder. One night, after a long day at work, I came home to find Linda standing in the middle of the living room, her arms folded tightly across her chest. The tension in the air was thick. "Michael, where is the 20,000 naira I left on the table?" she asked. I blinked. "I used it for fuel. The generator was out of fuel, and I had to buy some." Linda's eyes darkened. "You didn't think to tell me first." "That money was for groceries." I sighed. "I was going to replace it tomorrow." But that wasn't good enough for Linda. She started listing all the times I had spent money without telling her, on snacks, drinks with friends, even little things like airtime. I, too, had complaints. She bought expensive clothes and made impromptu market runs. We both felt the other was reckless. That night, for the first time since our wedding, we slept on opposite sides of the bed without speaking. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of Linda moving around the kitchen. The clinking of plates and the sharp slam of the fridge door told me she was still upset. I sighed, hoping the night had cooled things down, but when I walked into the kitchen, Linda didn't even look at me. "Good morning," I said cautiously. "Morning," she muttered, her back still turned. I sat down at the table, watching as she prepared breakfast. The air was thick with tension. Usually, we would joke around in the mornings, teasing each other about who snored louder or who took up more space in bed. But today, there was only silence. As she placed a plate of yam and eggs in front of me, I reached for her hand. "Linda, we need to talk." She pulled away. "Talk about what?" "How you keep spending money without thinking. Or how I always have to clean up after your mess." Her words stung, but I forced myself to stay calm. "It's not just me, Linda. You also spend without telling me. We both do it." She crossed her arms. "At least I don't empty the money for important things." I sighed. "Then let's fix this. I don't want us fighting over money. There has to be a better way." She looked at me, her anger still there but mixed with something else, uncertainty. "Fine," she said finally. "But if we're talking everything." I thought we were finally going to have a calm conversation, but I was wrong. As soon as Linda sat down across from me, the floodgates opened. "You know what, Michael? I don't think you understand how hard it is to run this house," she began, her voice sharp. "You just go around spending money like it grows on trees." I frowned. "That's not fair, Linda. I work hard too. Do you think I enjoy struggling to make ends meet?" She scoffed. "If you really cared, you wouldn't spend on unnecessary things." That did it. My patience snapped. "Oh, so now I'm the problem. What about you, Linda? You buy clothes every month. You order food when we have ingredients at home. But when I buy fuel or help a friend, I'm reckless." Her eyes widened. "Excuse me. Are you comparing me buying food for the house to you wasting money on drinks with friends?" I ran a hand through my hair, frustrated. "That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying we both spend without thinking. Instead of blaming each other, why don't we find a solution?" She shook her head, her arms crossed. "Maybe the solution is for you to be more responsible." That hurt. "You think I'm irresponsible?" "Sometimes, yes." Silence filled the room. We were no longer just fighting about money. We were questioning each other's character. And that was more dangerous than I realized. I stared at Linda, my chest tightening. It wasn't just about money anymore. It was about respect. About trust. About whether she still saw me as a responsible man or just someone who made life harder for her. "You really think I'm irresponsible?" I asked again, my voice quieter this time. Linda looked away, And for a second, I thought she regretted saying it. But then she sighed. Michael, I didn't mean it like that. I just feel like I'm carrying too much on my own. I wanted to argue, to remind her that I worked hard too, that I was doing my best. But what if she was right? What if, in trying to do things my way, I had made her feel alone? Linda, I said, my voice softer now, we're both struggling. I hate this just as much as you do. She rubbed her temples. So what do we do? Because I can't keep living like this. I love you, but I'm tired of fighting over money every day. I swallowed hard. I had no answers. We were both tired, both frustrated. And for the first time, I wondered, was love really enough to hold a marriage together when money kept tearing it apart? Linda's words echoed in my head, I love you, but I'm tired. Those words scared me more than anything. Love was supposed to be enough, right? But here we were, sitting at the dining table like strangers, unable to find a way forward. Linda exhaled loudly and shook her head. Michael, I don't know how much longer I can do this. The stress, the uncertainty. It's like we're living paycheck to paycheck, always chasing after money that never lasts. I clenched my fist. Do you think I don't feel it too? I work long hours, yet somehow, the money disappears before the month even ends. I'm exhausted, Linda. I don't know what else to do. She looked up at me, her eyes filled with a mix of sadness and frustration. Maybe we're just bad with money. That hit hard. The thought of failing at something so important made my stomach twist. I had always seen myself as a responsible man, a good provider. But what if I wasn't? What if Linda was right? For the first time, I saw something different in her eyes, fear. Not just fear of being broke, but fear that we were slipping into a life where our marriage was defined by stress, not love. Michael, she whispered, we need help. I swallowed. But where do we even start? The silence stretched between us. We both knew the answer. We needed to learn how to manage our money. But admitting that felt like admitting defeat. The room felt heavy, like we had just uncovered a truth neither of us wanted to face. We weren't just bad with money, we were afraid of it. Afraid that no matter how hard we worked, it would never be enough. Afraid that one wrong decision could ruin everything. Linda folded her arms, her voice softer now. Michael, do you know how many nights I lie awake thinking about bills? About how we manage if an emergency comes up? I looked down at the table. I hadn't known. Or maybe I had, but I didn't want to admit it. I guess I just hoped things would work out. She scoffed. Hoped. That's not a plan, Michael. That's gambling with our future. Her words stung, but she wasn't wrong. For too long, I had avoided the hard conversations. I worked, I spent, and I assumed that somehow, things would balance out. But they never did. I took a deep breath. All right. We need to do something different. But I don't know where to start. Linda hesitated, then grabbed her phone. I've been reading about budgeting, she admitted. Maybe if we sit down and go through our expenses, we'll see where the problem is. I nodded, surprised by the small spark of hope in her voice. Okay. Let's do it. No more fighting. Just solutions. For the first time in weeks, we weren't blaming each other. We were fighting together. Linda grabbed a notebook and sat beside me on the couch. I watched as she flipped to a blank page and wrote at the top, our finances. The sight of it made my stomach twist. This wasn't just a discussion anymore, it was real. Okay, she said, taking a deep breath. Let's list out everything we spend money on. No hiding anything. I nodded, feeling a little nervous. All right. Rent, electricity, water, food. She started writing as I spoke. Fuel, internet, transportation, airtime. Clothes, she added. And eating out. I hesitated before adding, random spending. Like when I buy snacks or drinks after work. Linda shot me a knowing look but didn't say anything. Instead, she nodded and wrote it down. And I guess I have mine too. Like when I buy things I don't really need from the market. That surprised me. I had been expecting another argument, but for the first time, we were both admitting our faults. When the list was done, we stared at it. There were more expenses than we had expected. And when we added up our earnings, the truth hit us hard. We were spending more than we made. Linda sighed. No wonder we always feel broke. I ran a hand through my hair. So what do we do now? She tapped the page. We budget. We make sure every naira has a purpose. No more careless spending. For the first time in a long time, I felt hope. Maybe, just maybe, we could fix this. We sat there in silence, the weight of what we were about to do sinking in. Linda looked at me with a mix of determination and uncertainty. All right, Michael. We've got to stick to this budget, no excuses. We write down everything we plan to spend, and if it's not on the list, we don't buy it. I nodded, feeling the seriousness of it all. But I think we should also set aside some savings, even if it's just a little at first. We need to start building something for the future. Linda agreed, and together, we spent the next hour sorting through every single expense. It wasn't easy. Every time I wrote down something I spent money on, I felt a little guilty. The snacks, the unnecessary trips to the store, it all added up. Look, Linda said, pointing to the page. If we cut back on these small things, like the extra snacks and the random shopping, we can save more. I sighed. But I don't know if I can stick to this. I'm used to just buying what I want when I want it. She gave me a small, reassuring smile. I know, but we're in this together. No more doing this alone. If we can make this work, we'll have more peace, and maybe, just maybe, we won't feel like we're always one step away from disaster. I looked at her, feeling a surge of gratitude. Okay. We can do this. The next few weeks were a test. Every time I reached for my wallet, I hesitated, remembering our agreement. I could still feel the old habits trying to pull me back, buying a drink on the way home, ordering food when we had enough to cook at home. But Linda was right there beside me, reminding me of our goal. Remember the budget, she'd say whenever I reached for something unnecessary. We have enough for the things we actually need. At first, it felt like torture. I had to walk past stores, resist the urge to make random purchases, and most of all, control the impulse to treat myself for working hard. But as the days passed, something strange started to happen. The more we stuck to our plan, the more I saw the difference. One evening, as we sat down to a simple but satisfying meal, Linda smiled. You know, this feels good. Not having to worry about whether we have enough money to cover everything. I agreed, feeling a quiet pride. I never realized how much the little things added up. We could have spent money on eating out today, but we didn't, and look, here we are, still full and happy. The budget wasn't just helping us save money, it was helping us find joy in the simple things again. And that was something I hadn't felt in a long time. But even with our new routine, there was still one fear that lingered in the back of my mind. What if we slipped back into our old habits? What if, after a few months, we went back to arguing about money like we used to? A month passed, and things started to settle into a routine. We stuck to our budget. We paid the bills on time. We even managed to save a little. For the first time in what felt like forever, Linda and I were communicating more about our finances instead of fighting over them. But the peace didn't come without temptation. One Saturday afternoon, Linda and I decided to take a walk. As we passed a new store that had just opened, I noticed a flashy ad for a big sale. James, look. The shoes I've been wanting are on sale. Only today. My heart sank. I knew Linda had been eyeing those shoes for weeks. I had also wanted a new phone case, but we had agreed to hold off on any non-essential purchases for the next few months. Linda, remember the plan? I said, trying to keep my voice calm. She looked at me, her hand still reaching for the door. But it's just one pair of shoes, Michael. And it's a sale. We can always make room in the budget. I could feel the old temptation rising in me too. One little purchase wouldn't hurt, right? But then I remembered all the hard work we had put into this new approach. I thought of our savings, our peaceful evenings, and the hope that we wouldn't fall back into our old habits. No, I said firmly. We made a promise. Let's stick to it. Linda pulled her hand back slowly, disappointment clouding her face. But then, she smiled faintly. You're right. We've come too far to mess it all up for something we don't need. The next few weeks were a test of our commitment to each other and to the budget. Each time we faced a temptation, whether it was a sale, a night out, or even a friend's invitation to grab drinks, we remembered the work we had done together. The changes weren't always easy, but they were starting to show. Linda and I found ourselves talking more, not just about money, but about our dreams and our future. It wasn't just about surviving anymore. We were planning. We were building. One evening, as I went over our finances, I looked at the savings we had managed to put aside. It wasn't much, but it was a start. Linda, we've saved enough for our emergency fund, I said, my voice filled with pride. We are making progress. She smiled brightly, her eyes shining. I knew we could do it, Michael. I really did. It felt like we were finally on the same page, no longer pulling in different directions. The tension that had once defined our relationship had lifted, replaced by a sense of shared responsibility. Later that night, as we sat down to plan our next steps, Linda said something that really struck me. You know, Michael, it's not just about the money. It's about us working together. I've never felt this much peace in our marriage. I looked at her, touched by her words. Me neither. I think we finally figured out that financial harmony isn't about being perfect. It's about being together, supporting each other, and being honest. We both smiled. It wasn't about fixing everything overnight. It was about taking small steps together. As the months passed, our new financial routine became second nature. We no longer fought over money. Instead, we planned together, checked our progress, and celebrated small wins. Our savings grew, and so did our trust in each other. But with every step forward, there was still a nagging thought in the back of my mind: was this truly sustainable? Could we keep this up for the long term? Then, one evening, disaster struck. The car broke down. Linda and I had just gotten home from a long day at work when we realized it wouldn't start. My stomach dropped. I knew the repair cost would be high, and we hadn't accounted for this in our budget. Michael, what do we do now? Linda asked, her voice tight with worry. I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. We'll figure it out. It's just a setback. We looked at our budget, trying to see if we could make room for the repair. But there was nothing left to adjust. This was the moment we had feared, the unexpected expense that could throw everything off track. But then Linda took my hand, looking into my eyes with determination. We've saved for moments like this, remember? This is why we built that emergency fund. I blinked, realizing the truth. All the hard work, all the discipline, had prepared us for this. We weren't helpless anymore. All right, I said, feeling a renewed sense of control. We'll use the emergency fund. And then we'll get back on track. Linda smiled. Together. The car repair was expensive, but it wasn't the disaster it could have been. Thanks to our emergency fund, we managed to pay for it without plunging into debt or sacrificing the essentials. I remember sitting down that evening, reflecting on how far we had come. A year ago, this situation would have been a reason to fight. It would have brought out all the fear and frustration that came with not knowing where the money would come from. But now, Linda and I looked at the problem as a challenge we could face together. The repair cost was a setback, but it didn't break us. It didn't shake the foundation we had built. Michael, Linda said, her voice soft but firm, this is what we've been working for. We've made mistakes, sure, but we've learned from them. We are stronger now. And we are going to keep moving forward. I smiled at her, feeling a deep sense of gratitude. You're right. We're not perfect, but we're better. Together. And for the first time in a long time, I felt the weight of financial stress lift off my shoulders. We weren't just surviving anymore, we were thriving. We had learned that financial harmony wasn't about perfection. It was about communication, teamwork, and the willingness to face the challenges together, no matter how difficult. As we finished our dinner that night, I looked at Linda and realized just how much I appreciated her. Through all the arguments, the struggles, and the doubts, she had stood by me. She hadn't given up on us. And neither had I. Months passed, and the changes Linda and I made to our financial habits became more and more natural. We didn't have to remind each other about sticking to the budget anymore. We weren't perfect, of course, but we had built a routine that worked for us. We checked in on our savings, made sure we weren't overspending, and celebrated small wins. One evening, we sat together in our living room, scrolling through our bank account balance. I looked at the number and couldn't believe it. It was more than I had ever imagined it could be. For the first time, I felt secure. Look at that, I said, showing Linda the balance. We did it. We are actually building something. Linda's eyes lit up with pride. It's not just the money, Michael. It's the trust we've built. We are not afraid of the future anymore. We are facing it together. I smiled, realizing she was right. It wasn't just about having more money, it was about the peace of mind that came with knowing we could handle whatever came our way. Maybe we should take a vacation, Linda suggested with a grin. You know, reward ourselves for all the hard work we've done. I laughed, thinking about how far we had come. I like that idea. And this time, we'll actually have the money for it. We both laughed, realizing how much our life had changed in such a short time. What had once been a source of constant stress, money, was now something we could manage, something we controlled together. The vacation became a reality sooner than we expected. Linda and I decided to take a weekend trip to the beach. It wasn't extravagant, but it was perfect, peaceful, relaxing, and full of laughter. As we lay on the sand, watching the waves roll in, I couldn't help but think about how much had changed. A year ago, we were on the brink of breaking down because of money. Now, we were here, enjoying a moment of peace we had earned together. It's amazing, I said, staring at the horizon. I never thought we'd get here. Linda turned to me, her face glowing. Neither did I. But we didn't give up. We kept going, even when it seemed impossible. I reached for her hand, feeling a deep sense of love and respect. And that's the key, isn't it? It wasn't just about fixing our finances. It was about working together, trusting each other. No more hiding things, no more blaming. Linda smiled. Exactly. Financial harmony is really about teamwork, just like any other part of a marriage. It's not always easy, but it's worth it. We sat in silence for a moment, the sound of the waves washing away any lingering worries. I realized something. This wasn't just a victory over money. This was a victory for us. We had learned how to communicate, how to face challenges together, and how to strengthen our marriage in the process. For the first time in a long time, I felt a deep sense of peace. We weren't perfect, but we were happy. And that was enough. As we walked back to our car after the beach day, I couldn't help but reflect on everything we had gone through. The fights, the frustrations, the tears, and then the turning point where we decided to tackle our problems head-on, together. Linda and I had come a long way, and we were no longer just surviving our marriage, we were thriving. Michael, Linda said, breaking my thoughts, I've been thinking about something. I looked at her curiously. What's that? She hesitated for a moment before speaking. You know, it wasn't just about the money all along. I think we both needed to learn how to trust each other more, to rely on each other, not just for the finances but for everything. I smiled, feeling proud. I agree. We've grown so much. I used to think I could handle everything on my own, but now I realize how much stronger we are together. Linda nodded. Exactly. The money fight wasn't just about numbers, it was about learning how to support each other. We had to learn how to be a team in all things, not just the easy stuff. I squeezed her hand as we reached the car, feeling grateful for how far we had come. I'm proud of us, Linda. We turned something that seemed like a huge problem into a way to grow together. Linda smiled, leaning her head on my shoulder. Me too, Michael. And I know that no matter what happens next, we'll face it as a team. I could feel the weight of all our past struggles melting away. The lessons we had learned about money were just the beginning. What mattered most was how we had learned to lean on each other, to communicate, and to trust. And that would keep us strong for whatever came next. A few months passed, and things seemed to be going well. We were managing our finances better, sticking to the budget, and communicating more than ever. But just when we thought everything was smooth sailing, an unexpected surprise came our way. One evening, I received a call at work. It was from my cousin, Ngozi, who lived in another city. Michael, I've got some exciting news, she said excitedly. We are throwing a big family reunion next month, and we want you and Linda to come. The best part? It's all expenses paid. I blinked in surprise. A family reunion? That sounded amazing, but also expensive. I looked at my phone, glancing over at the budget sheet Linda and I had been working so hard on. The trip would surely cost more than we had planned for this month. I'll talk to Linda and get back to you, I told Ngozi, my mind racing. After work, I brought up the reunion to Linda. Ngozi invited us to a family reunion next month, I said, handing her the invitation. It sounds amazing, but it's going to be a lot of money if we decide to go. Linda's eyes widened. Wait, expenses paid? She asked, sounding both excited and skeptical. I nodded. Yeah, but it's still a big commitment. We'll have to take time off work, pay for transportation, and we'll likely end up buying gifts for everyone. I'm not sure if it's something we can swing this month. The conversation continued into the evening, with Linda and I weighing the pros and cons of the trip. The idea of a family reunion was incredibly appealing. It had been so long since we had seen relatives, and the thought of spending quality time together was a temptation we hadn't expected. You know, we've been so good with our budget, Michael, Linda said, tapping the invitation on the table. Maybe this is our reward. We've earned it. I looked at her, torn between the excitement of a family reunion and the responsibility we had worked so hard to create. But Linda, we've been sticking to the budget because we need to be careful. It's been working, and I'm worried about throwing everything off. Linda smiled gently. I understand. But sometimes, life throws us opportunities, and we can't be afraid to enjoy them. What if we adjust our budget for the month and set aside money for this trip? We'll still be careful, but we can make it work. Her words lingered in my mind. Could we really manage it? Could we adjust our plans without risking everything we had worked for? It was a hard decision, but Linda had a point. Life was about balance, and maybe this was an opportunity we shouldn't miss. After discussing it for a while, we decided to make the trip work. We adjusted our budget for the month, cutting out non-essential purchases like eating out and shopping for extra things we didn't need. We also agreed that this would be a special exception, and we couldn't make a habit of spending lavishly. It wasn't easy. The weeks leading up to the trip were filled with small sacrifices. We ate at home more, we stopped impulse buying, and we focused on what really mattered. And when the day of the family reunion arrived, I felt a sense of pride. We hadn't let our excitement blind us. We had found a way to enjoy the trip while staying responsible. Linda and I packed our bags and made the journey, both of us feeling the mix of excitement and relief. When we arrived at the reunion, We were welcomed with open arms by family members we hadn't seen in years. The laughter, the stories, the food, it was all worth it. But the trip also taught us something important. Enjoying life didn't have to mean abandoning responsibility. We had learned how to make room for joy, even in the midst of financial discipline. The family reunion was a blast, but as we made our way back home, the reality of our finances hit us again. The trip had been amazing, but I couldn't shake the thought of how much we had spent. Despite the adjustments we made, there was still a lingering feeling that we had taken a risk. You know, Michael, I'm so glad we went, Linda said as we sat in the car, but I'm also glad to be heading home. We got to enjoy ourselves, but now it's time to get back on track. I nodded. I agree. It was an incredible experience, but I'm ready to focus again. Let's get back to our savings goal. When we arrived home, we sat down and took a hard look at our finances. The reunion had drained our budget a bit more than we had planned, but we weren't in trouble. We had enough saved to stay on track. Still, we knew we needed to be even more careful moving forward. We'll tighten up our budget for the next few months, I suggested. But we'll keep enjoying life too. We just need to make sure it's in balance. Linda agreed. We've worked hard for what we have. A little fun here and there is okay, but we need to be mindful of our long-term goals. The weeks that followed taught us an important lesson about life and money. It wasn't about being perfect or always saying no to opportunities. It was about being aware of our goals and making decisions that aligned with them, without letting anything or anyone pressure us into losing sight of what we really wanted. There were still moments when the temptation to overspend crept up on us, but Linda and I had grown better at recognizing it. One evening, we were out running errands when we passed a mall with a huge sale. I glanced at Linda, wondering if she'd even consider going inside. She looked at me with a mischievous smile. "You're thinking about it, aren't you?" I laughed. "I guess I was. But remember our goals." She nodded, taking my hand. "We don't need to buy anything we don't need. Besides, we've got everything we need at home." It was moments like these that showed me just how far we had come. We had learned to stop and think before making decisions, and we had developed a system that worked for us. Just as we started to feel confident in our financial habits, another challenge came our way. My company was going through some restructuring, and there were rumors of layoffs. Linda and I had always tried to prepare for unexpected setbacks, but this was something we hadn't accounted for. What if one of us loses our job? Linda asked, her face serious. What will we do then? We sat together, the weight of her question settling over us. Our emergency fund had been growing, but it wasn't enough to cover months of unemployment. "I think we need to beef up our savings," I said. "We need to be prepared for any situation, no matter how unlikely it seems." Linda nodded, her expression thoughtful. "I agree. We've been doing great, but we need to keep working toward our financial stability. We can't just hope for the best." And so, our focus shifted again, this time, to making sure we were as prepared as possible for the unexpected. It meant cutting back even more and putting aside a larger portion of our income for savings. It wasn't easy, but we both knew it was necessary. The months that followed were full of hard work, but also a deep sense of purpose. Every time we had the urge to spend on something we didn't need, we reminded ourselves of the goal we were working toward. We weren't just building savings, we were securing our future. Linda and I also spent more time together discussing our goals, not just about money, but about everything. What kind of life did we want to build? What dreams did we have? Our conversations went beyond just numbers and spreadsheets. They were about building a future we both wanted. One evening, as we looked at our growing savings account, Linda turned to me with a proud smile. "Michael, look how far we've come. I never thought we could do this." I smiled back, my heart full of gratitude. We did it together. That's the key. It wasn't about me or you, it was about both of us working towards something better. We had learned that financial security wasn't just about the money, it was about the partnership we had built. The strength of our marriage was rooted in our teamwork, in our ability to communicate, and in our commitment to each other's well-being, no matter the challenges we faced. As time passed, our financial situation became more stable, and the worry of layoffs faded as the restructuring at my company was completed. But even though the immediate threat was gone, Linda and I continued our diligent savings plan. We also took the time to celebrate our progress, going out for dinner once a month, or enjoying small rewards for staying disciplined. We had learned how to find balance between saving for the future and enjoying the present. One afternoon, as we sat on the porch, I turned to Linda. I feel like we've really got this. We've turned something that could have torn us apart into a strength. She nodded, her eyes full of understanding. It wasn't just the money that changed, Michael. We changed. Our whole approach to life, to our marriage, it's different now. And in that moment, I realized that our journey wasn't just about fixing a financial problem, it was about growing together, becoming stronger as individuals and as a couple. It wasn't long before we encountered another challenge. This time, it wasn't about saving or spending, but about giving. One Sunday, after church, Linda and I received a call from a close friend of mine, Chijioke. He had just opened a new business, and he was asking if we could help with a financial contribution to get it off the ground. I know things have been tight for us, he said over the phone, but even a small donation would make a huge difference. Linda and I exchanged glances. We had been doing well financially, but we weren't at a place where we could give large amounts without it affecting our own savings goals. Still, it didn't feel right to say no outright. I'll be honest, Chijioke, I said, we've been saving for a rainy day. But I understand how important this is for you. Let me talk to Linda, and we'll see what we can do. After the call, Linda and I sat down to discuss it. I want to help him, Michael. But what if we give now and it puts us back? I nodded. I know. It's a tough one. But I think we should consider how much we can afford to give without jeopardizing our plans. We've been good at saying no to things that don't align with our goals, but this might be different. We both agreed to give a modest amount that wouldn't put our own finances at risk. The decision felt right because we had learned the importance of generosity, but also how to balance it with our own needs. A few weeks later, Chijioke called to thank us. You have no idea how much your support means to me, he said, his voice full of emotion. You helped me reach a milestone I couldn't have gotten to without you. I won't forget this. Linda and I were both touched by his gratitude. It felt good to know that our small contribution had made a real difference. But it also reinforced something we had learned throughout our journey. Financial success wasn't just about accumulating wealth. It was about using it wisely and sharing it when we could. That night, we talked about the importance of giving back. We're blessed, Linda said thoughtfully. We don't have everything we want, but we have enough. And that means we can help others when they need it. I smiled at her words, feeling grateful. That's the key, Linda. We've learned to live within our means, but we've also learned that it's okay to give when we can. It's part of building a fulfilling life. The months that followed felt calmer. We were no longer constantly stressed about money, and our relationship had grown even stronger. We had learned how to handle financial challenges with maturity and unity. But what surprised me the most was how our perspective had shifted. Money no longer controlled us. It was still important, but it wasn't the center of our lives. We had learned how to manage it responsibly, but we had also learned to prioritize the things that mattered most, our love for each other, our dreams, and our shared vision for the future. One day, as we sat on the couch, flipping through old photos of our earlier years together, I realized how much we had changed. We had gone from struggling with arguments about money to living a life of purpose and unity. You know, I said, looking at Linda, I never thought we'd make it this far. It feels like we've grown so much in just a year. Linda smiled, her eyes soft with affection. We have. But I think the best part is that we did it together. One evening, as we sat together after dinner, I brought up something that had been on my mind. Linda, what do you think about setting a new goal for us? Something bigger. She looked at me curiously. What do you mean? I took a deep breath. I've been thinking about our future. We've made it through the tough times, but I want us to think even bigger. Maybe it's time to start investing. We've saved well, but we need to think about growing our wealth so we can eventually live the life we've dreamed about. Maybe it's time for us to build something for the future. Linda was quiet for a moment, considering. That sounds like a big step. But you're right. We've been talking about our dreams, and this could be the way to make them a reality. But we need to do it the right way. We can't rush into anything. I nodded. Absolutely. It's not about making quick money, it's about smart, thoughtful investments that will set us up for the future. The next few months were filled with research, planning, and learning. Linda and I started reading books and articles about investing. We watched videos, attended seminars, and talked to financial advisors. The more we learned, the more we realized how much we still had to understand. But we were committed to making informed choices. One evening, as we sat with our financial advisor, Mrs. Okeke, she asked us a question that stopped me in my tracks. What's your main goal in all of this? Why do you want to invest? I looked at Linda, and we both shared the same thought. We want financial freedom, I said. We want to build something that lasts for the future. Something that'll give us options, so we don't have to worry about money the way we used to. Mrs. Okeke smiled. That's a great reason. It's important to know your why before you dive into investments. Your goal is clear, and now it's about making the right choices that align with that vision. We left the meeting feeling both excited and nervous. The road ahead was long, but we were ready to take the next step in our journey together. After months of research, Linda and I decided to take our first step into investing. It wasn't easy, there were so many options, and every decision felt heavy. But we finally chose to start with a small, safe investment in real estate. We knew it wasn't going to make us rich overnight, but it was a start, and that was what mattered. One Saturday morning, we found ourselves sitting with an agent at a real estate office, discussing our first property. The building was modest, not too flashy, but it was in a growing neighborhood with good potential. We could afford it, and the idea of owning property felt like the beginning of something big. Are you sure we're ready for this? Linda asked, her fingers nervously tapping on the table. I took her hand in mine, reassuring her. We've been preparing for this moment for months. This is just the beginning. We are doing this together, and I know we can handle it. It felt surreal. Here we were, standing at the edge of a new chapter, a chapter that felt a bit intimidating but also full of promise. The next few months were a whirlwind of learning, adjusting, and growing. Our real estate investment didn't yield immediate returns, but the process itself was teaching us valuable lessons about patience, timing, and strategy. We began to see the long-term potential, and that gave us confidence to keep going. Michael, do you ever think about how far we've come? Linda asked one evening, as we sat together after dinner, reviewing our finances. A few years ago, we were arguing about small expenses. Now, we are making big decisions together. I smiled at her. I do think about it, and I'm proud of us. We've grown stronger, not just in our finances, but in how we handle challenges. We've learned that the key is working together, no matter what. And that was the truth. Every investment, every sacrifice, every challenge, we had faced it together, learning and growing with each step. But even with the progress we had made, doubt still lingered. One day, after a long week at work, I came home to find Linda sitting on the couch, staring at the real estate paperwork with a furrowed brow. Is everything okay? I asked, walking over to her. She looked up at me, her expression full of concern. Michael, I've been thinking. What if this whole investment thing doesn't work out? What if we lose everything? We've put so much into it, and I'm scared of what might happen. I sat down beside her, taking her hand. I understand your fear, Linda. I'm scared too. But remember, we've always been careful. We've researched, we've planned, and we've stuck together. This isn't about a quick win, it's about building something solid over time. We've made it this far, and we're not going to let fear stop us now. Linda nodded slowly, her worry still lingering but less overwhelming. You're right. I guess we just have to trust the process. We've done it before, and we can do it again. Just as we thought things were settling down, a setback came our way. The real estate market took a dip, and our property's value dropped unexpectedly. It wasn't a huge loss, but it was enough to make us uneasy. I could see the worry on Linda's face as she looked over the numbers. What if this is just the beginning? She asked. What if everything keeps going down? I knew this wasn't going to be easy. We can't predict the future, Linda. But we've planned for moments like this. We have our emergency fund, and we've learned to weather storms together. This is just a bump in the road. We'll get through it. It wasn't an easy conversation, but we faced it together, as we always had. We decided not to panic, knowing that market fluctuations were part of the process. The months after the setback were a test of patience. The market slowly began to recover, and so did the value of our property. But we had learned something important in the process. Patience was key. We had been so focused on immediate results, but we had to remember that good things took time. Slowly but surely, we saw the fruits of our patience. Our investment started to yield small returns, and we felt a sense of accomplishment. I think we're getting better at this, Linda said one evening as we discussed our finances. We didn't let fear control us. We just kept going. I smiled, proud of how far we had come. We're not perfect, but we're learning. And that's what matters. We found our rhythm, and I believe we're on the right path. As the years went by, Linda and I began to dream even bigger. Our financial journey had transformed not just our bank accounts but our entire mindset. We no longer saw money as something that controlled us, we saw it as a tool to build the life we wanted. One evening, as we sat under the stars, I turned to Linda with a thought. What if we could retire early? What if we could travel the world, visit places we've always dreamed of? We've worked so hard, maybe it's time to think about that. Linda's eyes sparkled. You know, I've been thinking the same thing. If we keep going the way we are, we could have the freedom to do whatever we want. And just like that, a new dream was born. We set our sights on early retirement, and we began to make plans. It wasn't going to happen overnight, but we knew it was possible if we continued to work together, stay disciplined, and keep our eyes on the prize. As we ventured further into our journey, I couldn't help but reflect on how far we had come. The arguments that once threatened our relationship over finances were a distant memory. We had learned how to communicate, how to set boundaries, and how to work together as a team. One day, while we were discussing our investment portfolio, Linda looked at me with a thoughtful expression. Michael, do you remember when we couldn't even agree on a budget? Now, we are planning for our future, together. I chuckled. I remember. It feels like a lifetime ago. Linda smiled. We've come a long way, and I think we are finally where we need to be. It was true. We had reached a place of peace, both with our finances and with each other. Our financial harmony had become a reflection of our marriage, strong, steady, and united. Just when things seemed to be going smoothly, life threw us another curveball. Linda fell ill unexpectedly, and we found ourselves facing medical bills we hadn't prepared for. It wasn't a huge amount, but the timing was tough. As we sat together in the doctor's office, I could see the worry on Linda's face. Michael, how are we going to pay for all this? She asked quietly. I took her hand, squeezing it reassuringly. We'll figure it out. We've been through worse. And remember, we've learned to save for emergencies. We've got this. It wasn't easy, but we relied on the emergency fund we had built over the years. We didn't panic. We simply adjusted, made sacrifices where we could, and kept moving forward. The experience reminded us of the importance of preparation and the power of staying calm in the face of adversity. After a few months of adjustment, Linda was feeling better, and we had managed to stay on top of our finances. The experience had taught us to always be prepared for the unexpected, and we were more committed than ever to our financial goals. One evening, as we sat on the porch sipping tea, I looked at Linda and smiled. "We did it, didn't we?" Linda laughed softly. "I think we did. We've come through so much together, and we are stronger for it." I nodded. "We've learned to face whatever comes our way, together. And that's the most important lesson." At that moment, I knew we were more than just financially secure. We had built a strong, unbreakable foundation based on trust, teamwork, and love. We were ready for whatever the future held. As the years passed, Linda and I continued to set new financial goals and pursue our dreams with determination. We had come a long way since the days of arguing about small expenses. But the most important thing we had gained was the knowledge that we were in this together. "We've created something amazing, Michael," Linda said one evening as we reviewed our retirement savings. "We've worked hard, made sacrifices, and now we can finally see the results." I smiled at her. "And we did it together." The money was never the most important part. What matters is the trust, the teamwork, and the love we've shared along the way. Linda's eyes shone with pride. "You're right. The financial freedom is just a bonus. The real reward is the life we've built together." As we began to plan for our future, we also thought about the legacy we wanted to leave behind. We talked about the lessons we'd learned over the years, and how we could pass them on to our children someday. "I want our kids to understand the importance of teamwork, trust, and patience when it comes to money," Linda said one evening, as we sat talking about our future. "I want them to know that they can achieve anything if they work together and support each other." I nodded. "I want them to know that money isn't everything. It's just a tool to help us live a fulfilling life. The real treasures are the relationships we build, the values we hold dear, and the love we share." Together, we began to dream of the life we could create for the next generation. We knew we couldn't control everything, but we could teach them the lessons we had learned. We could show them that financial harmony wasn't just about money, it was about love, partnership, and a commitment to growing together. As I sat by Linda's side, reflecting on everything we had been through, I couldn't help but feel an overwhelming sense of gratitude. The journey hadn't been easy, but it had been worth every challenge, every disagreement, and every sacrifice. "Linda," I said softly, "thank you for being with me through all of this. You've been my partner, my strength, and my greatest support. We've built something beautiful together, and I couldn't have done it without you." Linda smiled, her eyes filled with love. "We've built it together, Michael. This isn't just your success, it's ours. And I'm so grateful for the life we've created." As we sat in silence, watching the sunset, I knew that no matter what the future held, we were ready. Because we had learned the most important lesson of all. Financial harmony requires teamwork, and together, there was nothing we couldn't achieve. Just when we thought we had everything figured out, life threw us another unexpected challenge. Our property investment, which had been doing well for a few years, suddenly faced a major setback. A new road was being planned right next to our building, and the noise from construction was unbearable. The value of the property began to drop, and I could see the worry in Linda's eyes as she stared at the latest market report. "Michael, what do we do now?" she asked, her voice filled with concern. "We've worked so hard, and now this." I could feel the tension building inside me too. This was another test of our resolve. But instead of panicking, I took a deep breath and reminded Linda of how far we had come. "We've been through tough times before, Linda," I said calmly. "We know how to handle setbacks. This is just another challenge we'll face together." And just like that, we decided to find a solution. We consulted experts, explored different options, and slowly but surely, we navigated the problem. It wasn't easy, but we worked together, just like we always had. Despite the setback, Linda and I refused to let it destroy the progress we had made. We kept pushing forward, and in doing so, we found a silver lining. We realized that this challenge was pushing us to think creatively and diversify our investments. It wasn't just about the property anymore, it was about thinking beyond our comfort zone. One evening, while brainstorming possible solutions, Linda had an idea. What if we start looking into stocks or mutual funds? Maybe we can spread our investment out and reduce the risk. I like the idea. That's a smart move, Linda. Let's do it. We began learning about the stock market, reading books, attending seminars, and seeking advice from trusted financial advisors. It was a whole new world, but we approached it with the same teamwork and dedication we had always shared. A few months later, our portfolio was starting to grow again. We had diversified, adding stocks, mutual funds, and even some small businesses to our list of investments. The real estate setback still stung, but we had turned it into an opportunity to grow in ways we hadn't imagined before. One night, as we sat in our living room, reviewing our financial statements, I turned to Linda and said, "You know, I think this might be the best thing that ever happened to us." Linda smiled. I agree. If it weren't for that challenge, we might never have taken this leap into new opportunities. We've learned so much. I couldn't help but feel proud. We had come so far. From those early days of arguing over small expenses to now, when we were facing big challenges together and finding ways to grow. As time went on, we realized that our perspective on money had shifted dramatically. What once seemed like the source of tension in our marriage was now a shared goal, a tool we could use to build the future we dreamed of. We no longer saw money as something to fight over. Instead, we saw it as a means of achieving our dreams together. One afternoon, while we were sitting on the porch watching the sunset, Linda turned to me and said, "Michael, do you ever think about how our journey has changed us?" I nodded. All the time. We've learned so much about money, about teamwork, and most importantly, about each other. She smiled, resting her head on my shoulder. I think the biggest lesson we've learned is that it's not about how much money we make. It's about how we handle it together, as a team. Now that we had overcome so many challenges, Linda and I started setting new, even bigger goals. We talked about expanding our investments further, possibly even starting a business together. We dreamed of helping others learn about financial management, just like we had learned over the years. We could start a financial coaching business, I suggested one evening. We've learned so much, and I think we could help other couples avoid the mistakes we made in the beginning. Linda's eyes lit up. That's a great idea. We've been through so much, and I think we could make a real difference by sharing our story. It was exciting to think about how we could take everything we had learned and help others along the way. We knew it wouldn't be easy, but we were ready to face it together. As we began to think about our business idea, we also realized the importance of giving back to our community. We had been blessed with so much, and we wanted to share our knowledge and resources with those who needed it most. One day, while we were volunteering at a local school, Linda turned to me and said, "Michael, imagine if we could teach these kids about money at an early age. If we could help them understand how to manage their finances, it could change their lives." I smiled, feeling the same sense of purpose. That's exactly what we want to do. We've been given so much, and now it's time to share our knowledge. And so, we began to plan a program to teach financial literacy to children and young adults. It was a way for us to give back, and we hoped it would make a difference in the lives of those who followed in our footsteps. Our program to teach financial literacy was born from a simple idea, helping the next generation avoid the same mistakes we had made. We started with local schools, organizing workshops and interactive lessons. We taught the children about the basics of money, saving, budgeting, and investing. Linda was amazing at simplifying the concepts. Think of money like a garden, she would explain. If you don't water it, it won't grow. But if you take care of it, you'll have a garden full of flowers and fruits. The kids loved it. They were eager to learn, ask questions, and even practice with play money. It was one of the most rewarding experiences we'd had. We realized that not only were we teaching them, but we were also reminding ourselves of the power of small, consistent actions. By the end of the program, we saw the difference we had made. One young girl, Adiz, approached us and said, "I used to spend all my money on candy, but now I save for things I really need. Thank you." It was moments like these that made us believe in the power of giving back. Even with our successes, doubt sometimes crept into my mind. Would we be able to sustain our business? Was the financial literacy program enough? I'd catch myself wondering if we were doing the right thing. One evening, as I was lying in bed, Linda noticed my quietness. "Michael, what's on your mind?" I hesitated, then spoke. "I sometimes wonder if we're doing enough. What if we fail? What if this business doesn't work out?" Linda turned to face me, her eyes full of understanding. "Michael, we've already succeeded. Look at everything we've accomplished together. We're not just building a business, we're building something that will last for generations. And we're doing it together, one step at a time." Her words comforted me. "You're right. We've come this far. No matter what, we'll keep going." In that moment, I knew that no challenge was too great for us to overcome. We were stronger than our doubts, and together, we could face anything. Years later, our financial literacy program had expanded far beyond our local community. We had reached schools in other cities, even other countries, all while continuing to build our own business and investments. One day, we received an invitation to speak at a global financial conference. As we prepared for the event, Linda and I reflected on how far we had come. "Michael, do you remember when we could hardly agree on a budget?" Linda asked with a smile. I laughed. "I remember. It feels like a different lifetime. We were no longer the couple who fought over small expenses. We were now educators, financial mentors, and entrepreneurs who had built something meaningful together." As we stood on the stage at the conference, I couldn't help but feel a deep sense of pride. We had learned the greatest lesson. Teamwork was the key to everything. Looking at our life now, it felt surreal. We had achieved so much. Not only had we built a successful business and financial portfolio, but we had also helped thousands of people change their lives. As we sat on the porch one evening, watching the sunset over the horizon, Linda said, "Michael, do you think we finally reached the place we were meant to be?" I smiled, taking her hand. "I think we have. We've come a long way from those days of fighting over money. And now, we've created something that will last, something that can help others." We had transformed our challenges into triumphs. Our journey wasn't just about accumulating wealth, it was about building a legacy of love, trust, and teamwork. Years passed, and as our children grew older, we began to think about how we could pass on our knowledge and values to them. We didn't want them to face the same struggles we did. We wanted them to understand the importance of financial harmony and how teamwork could overcome any obstacle. One evening, as we sat around the dinner table, I turned to our teenage children. "You've watched us grow together, and you've seen how we handle money. Now, it's your turn to start learning how to manage it." They listened intently as we shared our story, how we started with small steps and built something great over time. We taught them about budgeting, saving, and investing. But most importantly, we taught them that money wasn't everything. It was the trust, teamwork, and love that really mattered. Our children, just like us, began to dream of their future. They were determined to create their own financial harmony, using the lessons we had passed on to them. As Linda and I looked back on everything we had built, we felt proud of the legacy we were leaving behind. Our financial journey had been one of struggle, growth, and triumph. And now, it was time to pass on that wisdom to the next generation. One afternoon, while watching our children take their first steps toward financial independence, I turned to Linda and said, "We've done something amazing, haven't we?" She smiled, squeezing my hand. "Yes, we have. And now, we get to watch our children take those lessons and make them their own." Together, we had created a cycle of financial harmony, a legacy that would continue to inspire future generations. We had learned that when we worked together, there was no limit to what we could achieve. As I looked at our children, ready to face the world with the lessons we had taught them, I realized that the money fight wasn't really about money at all. It was about trust, partnership, and love. Linda and I had spent years learning, growing, and building something beautiful. And the most important lesson we had learned was that financial harmony requires teamwork. Looking at each other, we knew that no matter what challenges the future held, we would face them together. Because together, there was nothing we couldn't conquer. As we close the chapter on our money fight, we want you to remember this. The key to financial success isn't about having more money, it's about managing it together, with trust, love, and understanding. Financial harmony requires teamwork, and when you work as a team, anything is possible. Thank you for watching our journey unfold. We hope you found inspiration in our story. If you want to hear more stories like this, don't forget to subscribe to Storytime with African Tales. Share this video with your friends and family, and let's continue to learn and grow together.